What's the deal with that amp that you stand on?
What is the deal with it? It's a matrix wedge. It's a powered wedge, and typically because we're running in-ear monitors, the front row sort of gets ripped off. There's no sound, and so that just gives. I've got a wet, dry, wet signal, meaning that I've got 5 speakers in here that produce 2 inputs of sound, like a dry and then a stereo feed of effects. And the wedge in the front gives a mult down of all of that. So it's a mono signal, but it has the stereo effects and everything all summarized down. But really, I like having something to put my foot on. I used to put my foot on the monitors, and when my foot's up, I can really push into the floor. Like it's like that position of having one foot back and then another foot up. It's diaphragm, like where all the power for my vocals come is, you know, your core section, and being able to really push into the floor has always been something that I enjoyed doing. We had monitors in the past few tours because we have been without monitors. I find that my voice gets fatigued more if I don't have that sort of stance. Plus, I mean, it's metal, right? Your foot's up and all that. Mm-hmm. So it kind of serves 2 purposes. One, it gives a bit of a guitar signal for the front, and secondly, it allows me to pull rock poses. My rig has been consistent for many years in one fundamental way, and that is that I choose to use 2 amps, a 2-amp system. And throughout my entire career, I've basically had 5 sounds, no matter what configuration the 2-amp system has appeared in, and it's a really basic setup. But the problems that come with running 2 amps is many. For this tour, I chose to do something really easy. Fractal Axe-Fx is my main unit. I use that for everything. At home, for the demos, for the recordings, I use the Fractal. The problem with the Fractal in this tour, for me, was that I was so stretched to my capacity in terms of the other parts of the tour that required my attention, that I didn't have time to make a cool sound. I've been working on it, but then I upgraded the operating system. I couldn't get a sound. Like, there's so many options, and I just don't like options. So my buddy is an engineer in the UK, and he's one of the best cats for making guitar sounds. And so he said, well, I'm using a Kemper and I've got a bunch of sounds. I'll just give it to you. And then you don't have to think about guitar sounds. For your dry amp for this, here's a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. So basically, he sent me over these presets, and I decided to use the Kemper for my dry, and then the Axe-Fx for my second amp. With the Axe-Fx, Matt at Fractal, who's brilliant and also a good friend, took my old Roland GP100, which has been the core of my sound for 20 years, and he deconstructed it. He took the unit, he brought it into Fractal, he took it down to the very basics of it, and he replicated this sound that is this admittedly disgusting, old, ratty sound that I could not find a way to replicate. Because the specifics of why it was so ratty were elusive, you can't replicate it with just like a clean digital thing. Like, some of the notes would distort and it was overloading, and it created this depth that I always relied on. But Matt took it upon himself to replicate that, and he has gone ahead and made on this my main GP sound. I use scenes in the Fractal so I can get spillover. Scenes are within the parameters of one patch. You've got different things. So scene 2 is the main GP. Scene 1 is GP muted. Scene 3 is clean effects. Scene 4 is louder clean effects. And I think scene 5 is a lead sound. It's like a different type of delay. In the past, I've used 2 Fractals, one for the dry, one for wet. I've used a Mesa and continue to use a Mesa dual rectifier with a clean boost and a pedal board in the dry position. I used the Kemper for the dry position. Basically, this dry position is transient for me. I'm still trying to find the perfect heavy sound for me, and it's elusive, right? It's the dual rectifier with EL34s and the Maxon 808 as a clean boost was sort of my go-to, but then as I started progressing, I wanted a different mid-range, like more of a scoop, but the modern setting was too scooped and the vintage setting was too much mid-range, and so I was messing with that, and Tim at Mace has been helping me out. And you know, the Kemper's great. It's really a good amp, and it's the XVII is as good or better for the dry sound, but I like amps still. So I'm still trying to find the perfect solution for that dry scenario. But right now this works great. XVII is always a part of my rig. This Furman here is just a power supply, and this here is brilliant. It's made by Line 6. It's called the Firehawk, and what it is in the past, how I would run this wet dry wet system is I would run out of either the XVII Kemper or Mesa into a single cabinet powered, and then for the effects I would run 2 wedges, like just powered Mackeys or something. And the problem with that is it's a lot of cabling, it takes up a lot of room, and a cab and those, like your rig on especially on a stage like this, there's no room for it. So I talked to Matt Ferguson at Line 6, and he suggested trying this. What it is a 1500 watt powered, it's hard to explain because it's got the Line 6 amp sims and cabs and all that in there. But how I'm using it is a 1500 watt power amp that has 2 separate inputs, and there's 6 speakers in here. So the middle speaker is dry, my dry sound, and then the 2 outer ones, or the 3 outer ones, or however many in there, are the XVII, but they're set in a way that it's projecting not directly out, so it doesn't cancel itself out phase-wise. A lot of the other all-in-one cabinets, especially if it's stereo at this size, it doesn't sound stereo because of the way that the speakers are aligned, but they've gone ahead and made them so the phase is actually correct. And so I've got all of my sound coming out of this one thing, and it's a great, accurate, easy solution. So with this tour, it's a little different. Again, I had too much to do, and I didn't want to invest time into like making a new fractal patch. I didn't want to invest time into trying out a bunch of new amplifiers and putting the MIDI onto the pedal board and all this. So a buddy of mine suggested that I tried MIDIing up all my effects and patch changes, and my God, that has been like so good for me. So basically from Mike's world, another thing in Mike's world, sorry Mike, we have to send a MIDI cable to the XVII, and there's a through from the XVII to the Kemper, and we have 2 signals coming out of Ableton that send MIDI patch changes and MIDI control and program changes to both of my Fractal and my Kempers individually. And that way, the only thing I've got up front is a expression pedal, and expression pedal that acts as like a auto engage wah, and that's it. So I don't have to think about patch changes. They're perfect. All my volume automations for by your command, anything, it's all in there. And so far, although I'm still kind of working on that dry sound, you know, whether or not it ends up being another XVII or some other sort of crazy MIDI'd up tube amp, or it continues to be the Kemper, I'm not sure. But so far this rig is just, it's so good. It's so good. It's so easy. So, Chris Johnson, good friend of mine, Dunlop, he's been making me picks. These are 0.73. The guy's dragging a corpse from one side of the room to the other, slowly, with anger. There we go. All right, 0.73 Tortex, big bass picks, triangles. I've been using them forever. He does these full color ones now, which is great. You know, we got the Transcendence album and Signature and what have you. As it has been for the past 5 years and probably indefinitely. I'm with Framus and couldn't be happier. Framus is a company out of Marknenkirchen, Germany. They are also the same company that does Warwick basses. When I was a kid, my dad had a Framus guitar. I remember the headstock and the logo since I was a kid. And this is the first version of the Signature model that is coming out at NAMM next year. The difference between this one and the final version, this contour is going to be a little different. This contour is going to start a little further down. The body is going to be slightly thicker, the body is going to be slightly larger, the headstock is going to be slightly larger, and it's going to be a different color scheme. But basically this is the guitar, right? Marcus at Framus and I designed the body in AutoCAD, and we spent a year pissing away at it, and it's really something I'm very proud of. And Evertune bridge for training wheels for singers like me. I love this thing. I will undoubtedly never play without it again, specifically live, because we haven't tuned some of these guitars for a week and they're just dead on. I mean, I can't tell you how, even on a small level, like the amount of stress at not having to tune, how much it alleviates for me. The pickups are the signature set that we just worked on with Fishman over the past couple of years. It's called the Fishman Transcendence set, strangely enough, and you can get it through Sweetwater, and I think it's available commercially now. And basically what it is it's a ceramic blade and then pull pieces, which gives you two different sounds. Like a typical 81 sort of EMG sound is two ceramic blades. They give you that really immediate sort of metal attack, active pickup sound. And this gives you a good amount of that, but it also sort of, the pull pieces give you more of a scattered magnetic field, which works essentially really well for a clean sound. This switch here gives me three distinct sounds, right? So there I'm in active metal, there's like a passive humbucker sound, and then when I switch to here, both of these switch to single coil and a really low output passive sound. So I can, with this one guitar, cover basically anything from a Telly style sound, a really good replica of a Telly style sound, to like a full metal vibe. Construction is mahogany, set neck, maple top, ebony fretboard. Grover tuners, the ones that are going to be on the final one are the bigger ones. I don't like these little mini ones, but it's the same shape. And then that's this sort of guitar. And then when it comes to the other ones, I got another version of it. And again, we were just sort of experimenting with these because these are the prototypes, so we're just trying them out. So this one doesn't have lights, it's just a straight up sort of version of the same thing. And this is one that I've got tuned to open B. The other guitar is open C, C, G, C, G, C, E. This one's, what would that be? B, F sharp, B, F sharp, B, D sharp. And then I got this guitar that I use for By Your Command. The Fishman pickups, by the way, are rechargeable. Like you don't have to howl through the batteries, which is great because it's, you know, our little contribution to totally saving the world, and it's going to work because of us. World's on point now. Plus, you don't have to buy batteries. So this one here, they've got it's like a 335 style thing, and typically the Framus stuff is it's a hollow body like a 335 was, but I asked them to make it for me solid. So this is a massive chunk of mahogany with a maple top, ebony fretboard, same construction. And these are the actual type of tuners I like. It's basically the same idea, but the bigger one, right? And these are prototypes of the Fishman pickups. I didn't have the final ones before the tour started, so I just chucked those in and they work great. And yeah, it's all solid, like all this stuff here, the Z's and the lights and everything. It's the construction of Framus stuff is just second to none, honestly. Fucking tired, man. Holy crap. Okay. But here we go. Wait, next one. I'm getting there. I prefer the look of this one to the Ziltoid one, but I prefer the feel of the Ziltoid one because I think this one's got a single chamber in it, so it's slightly lighter. And I actually really like the heaviness of the other one, right? So it's the same basic construction, Evertune, mahogany, maple, ebony. But it's just a killer guitar. This is the pickup selector on here. This is the voice selector on this one. On the Ziltoid one, the voice selector was a push-pull pot. And then for the backup B, I got this one that they made several years back. And again, this is their AK 1974 model, but typically the ones that they sell are semi-hollow and really light, but I asked them again to make this one solid, so it's a fucking huge chunk of mahogany with a maple top, and it weighs a ton, and I love it. This here is the Mandelbrot Set, which is that fractal image from the mathematician Mandelbrot. If you look it up, it's this shape, which is in a sense a sort of analogy for the infinite, I guess. But this is actually a piece of burl wood. This isn't a separate, or this isn't like just a painting on this. This is a piece of burl wood that they cut out and then milled out all around here and did, that's an actual little piece of wood shaped like the Mandelbrot Set. It's crazy. And then in here they've got a light, and even though it's an FL, it's just aesthetic. Like the thing weighs a ton, right? And we got the DTP logo, and here's again those Grover tuners that I like. This thing here, I mean, people may be wondering what this chunk of foam is. I've got them on top of each headstock. There was a rack that I had at home, and I just found that this really dense foam. Found a big chunk of it, and I take it out, and every guitar that I have, I make a little piece that goes underneath, and all that basically does is stop the sympathetic vibrations up here. And because this isn't like a stop tail with another bridge like the Tune-O-Matic, I don't have to worry about the sympathetic vibrations down there. It just really gives you an immediate and dead attack on the, maybe not a dead attack, but you know, sometimes you, like what's his face in Soundgarden used to do. He'd hit behind the strings, he'd be like, boing! Like, yeah. Which works great for Soundgarden, but works really poorly for me. So that's it. I got 5 guitars out on this run, and I'm trying to migrate it so we keep 5 guitars in Europe as well, so we don't have to pay for the shipping, because that's the thing right now. You go to do these tours and you're trying to sort of generate income and all this sort of stuff, and flying this, because the airlines are cracking down on the weight restrictions. I think it's 50 pounds is the limits, and you can get 2 bags each. So every time I go there, I just bring another guitar and then leave it there, so when we fly from here on out, we'll have a rig over there, right? I got bit by a mosquito, motherfucker. Foot's getting better though.